That's kind of the theme of our talk tonight too, because I gave a refresher a couple of weeks ago, and at the end of the refresher, somebody asked the question, how do you squeeze in the second period of centering prayer? What are your tips for fitting in that second period of centering prayer? And the whole group responded to this question in really wonderful ways and made some made some suggestions that I found very inspiring. So I went back, I made a recording of that too, which is up online. And I went back and watched it so that I could write down some of these suggestions that people had made. So that will be our little talk tonight, will be some of those suggestions. How do you fit in the second centering prayer period? Okay, so let's start with a psalm. Psalm 29. The voice of God is a powerful voice. The voice of God is a voice of splendor. The voice of God breaks the cedar trees. God breaks the forest cedars. The voice of God splits the flames of fire. The voice of God shakes the wilderness. The voice of God makes the oak trees writhe and strips the forest bare. And in the temple of the Holy One, all are crying glory. Welcome to this digital contemplative prayer group. This is a place for all God's people. Whatever your beliefs or doubts, you are welcome here. If you are new to centering prayer, just follow the instructions as the session unfolds. You are also welcome to use the silence in any other way that is right for you. Loving God, we ask for your blessings upon this gathering. Recognizing that we bring the joys and sorrows of our lives here today, if anyone would like to mention silently or aloud expressions of gratitude or concern for ourselves, our families, our friends, our society, or our fragile planet, please do so now.
Gratitude for Dolores.
I want to remember my Aunt Shirley.
For David and Maria.
For Ken and for Melinda and her family.
God, we trust that you hear our prayers, silent or spoken, wordless or in words. So I mentioned at the beginning that a couple of weeks ago I gave a refresher, and during the question and answer session somebody asked what were some suggestions for how to fit in the second prayer period. And the group came forth with such wonderful suggestions that I went back and I watched the recording just to write them all down and share them with you, because I thought they were very, very helpful. And I also just want to raise up that experience underline something that I feel all the time, which is that I feel a call to teach to you and to give these little talks and to lead these groups. But there are some of you who have been practicing for as long as I have, and I know that no matter how long you've been practicing, that many of you have very deep, committed practices. And even those of you who are new to centering prayer are entering into relationship with God in a very profound way that I just want to say is no less than the way in which I do, that I'm the teacher just because this is my call and I have some way of allowing something to speak through me, and not because I have more wisdom than you do. So please trust the deep inner knowing that you're developing through this practicing, and that you can feel as we practice together the richness of all of us coming together, bringing our practices together, that you can feel that yours is no less than any other. We all have a great deal of wisdom and fruits coming forth from this practice. So, part of the reason this conversation was so fruitful, I think, is because when somebody asked me, how do you squeeze in the second prayer time, I actually didn't have anything particularly helpful to offer, because for me, for whatever reason, it isn't so much of a struggle to find time to do the second prayer period. I think it's partly because my life is more leisurely than some people's, but it's also that I have a deep hunger for this prayer, and I find it deeply refreshing. And so I do the first period when I wake up, and then after lunch I often really want to do the second period because it helps me, and I can feel how it helps me. It makes my mind clearer, it makes me more in touch with what's important and what needs to be done that day. So I think it was partly because I didn't have anything terribly helpful to say that other people were very inspired with their answers, and so here are some of them. One person suggested that someone had told her once a long time ago, and she had found very helpful, that as soon as you come home from work, you should take off your coat and sit down immediately for your centering prayer, without thinking about what you're going to do next or getting involved in the cooking or the chores or anything. Almost as if you had come home. It's almost as if you'd come home 20 or 30 minutes later than you did, because you do it right then with great clarity. And then another suggestion that this person had also found helpful is that you just set a time, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, for example, and when you look at the clock and you see it's 3 o'clock or it's past 3 o'clock, you just sit down and do it. Another person suggested that you think of it as a continuation of what you started in the morning, rather than thinking of it as separate prayer periods. You've started something, that you've set something in motion, and you're bringing it to fruition through your second period. Another person lived with some Muslims who were praying 5 times a day, and she found that a very inspiring way to, she was very inspired by their prayer practice 5 times a day, and she thought that the second period was a very important way of remembering that God is with you at all times, but when you sit down to pray, that's when you remember that God is with you. Another person suggested that you make it part of your daily rhythm, like meal times, that you feel, you set up a rhythm and you feel, oh, it's time for my prayer. I guess that's a little bit what's happened to me, that it's just, it's become part of my bodily rhythm that I can feel that it's time for my prayer. One person suggested finding a spot in between work and home in a church or a park where you could sit down and do your practice after you left work and before you got home. One person woke up quite a lot in the middle of the night and said that that could be a very good time to practice, although not a reliable time to do your second period. People commented on how online groups like this are very helpful ways to reinforce the second period. One person suggested doing the 2 periods very close together, separated by a meditative walk rather than at 2 different times of day. And I guess one thing writing this all down and thinking about it has made me reflect on is that it's very helpful to visualize exactly how you're going to do it, what's realistic for you, and then see yourself doing that so that you have a plan that works for you. That's one part of it. And then another part of it is to give yourself permission to do it, to figure out what is preventing you from an interior standpoint from doing it. If you're having a struggle, is there something in you that is not according it its full importance? And how can you overcome that resistance? What will help you to give yourself full permission to choose every day, I'm going to do 2 periods of prayer? Is it thinking about the fruitfulness of the prayer and what it's given you, or how it makes you feel when you do it, how things seem to flow? Is it thinking about the commandment of the Sabbath and how God asks us to set time apart for prayer and rest, and so we're not just indulging ourselves, but we're doing something that we've been asked to do that's very holy? What are the things that you need to do to make that second period of prayer call to you in a powerful way, so that you will hear the call? Okay, let's turn to our period of centering prayer. Take your posture, comfortable yet alert, not rigid. Sitting with your back straight, your body flowing out from your spine, your feet flat on the ground or in another stable position, your hands on your thighs or in your lap. And just notice if there are any adjustments you'd like to make to be comfortable and stable and present for the prayer period. Notice your breath flowing through your body, connecting you with the source of all being. Just notice if there are any constrictions in your breath or anywhere in your body that you'd like to let go of before we begin. And take a moment to notice who God is for you right now, whatever that might mean. A sense of mystery, darkness, presence, aliveness, justice, community, absence. Whatever it might be, Just touch the aliveness of it and renew your commitment to be open and present to that divine aliveness. And if you'd like, you could silently begin to repeat the sacred word or touch your breath with your attention, using your sacred symbol to orient yourself towards God. And during the prayer period, whenever you notice that you've become engaged with your thoughts, just gently disengage yourself, using your sacred symbol if necessary. Sacred One, awaken us. Tonight's reading is by Bishop Stephen Charleston, who is one of my favorite Facebook friends. He writes a new prayer on Facebook every day, and I've read some of them here before. They're often extremely beautiful. I'll read it 3 times, and then I'll invite you to share a word or phrase that resonated for you. Listen with the ear of the heart. We are not constrained by these days, as difficult as they may seem, to spend our hours in grim solitude, or to feel ourselves in a perpetual waiting room for the bad news the virus decides to send us. We are as free in our spirits as we ever were, able to claim our freedom through faith any time we want, and by so doing, rise on outspread wings to the distant heights of hope. Even alone in a room with no resources other than prayer, we can silently slip the bonds of worry and be off, as we once were so long ago, on a voyage of discovery, following the Spirit wherever she leads, out to the edge of wonder and back. Accept no substitute for your life, but live as fully as you can, and watch your fears fall before you as you fly the open skies of faith, soaring as far as your heart will take you. We are not constrained by these days, as difficult as they may seem, to spend our hours in grim solitude, or to feel ourselves in a perpetual waiting room for the bad news the virus decides to send us. We are as free in our spirits as we ever were, able to claim our freedom through faith any time we want, and by so doing, rise on outspread wings to the distant heights of hope. Even alone in a room with no resources other than prayer, we can silently slip the bonds of worry and be off, as we once were so long ago, on a voyage of discovery, following the Spirit wherever she leads, out to the edge of wonder and back. Accept no substitute for your life, but live as fully as you can, and watch your fears fall before you as you fly the open skies of faith, soaring as far as your heart will take you. We are not constrained by these days, as difficult as they may seem, to spend our hours in grim solitude, or to feel ourselves in a perpetual waiting room for the bad news the virus decides to send us. We are as free in our spirits as we ever were, able to claim our freedom through faith anytime we want, and by so doing, rise on outspread wings to the distant heights of hope. Even alone in a room with no resources other than prayer, we can silently slip the bonds of worry and be off, as we once were so long ago, on a voyage of discovery, following the Spirit wherever she leads, out to the edge of wonder and back. Accept no substitute for your life, but live as fully as you can, and watch your fears fall before you as you fly the open skies of faith, soaring as far as your heart will take you. I invite you to share a word or phrase that resonated for you.
Edge of wonder.
Claim freedom. Claim freedom of faith.
Out to the edge. Out to the edge of wonder and back.
Free of our spirit.
Slip the bonds of worry and be off.
Silently slip the bonds of worry.
Edge of wonder.
Soaring. Let's close by praying the night prayer together. I'll say it and you can say it with me, with yourself on mute. Lord, it is night. The night is for stillness. Let us be still in the presence of God. It is night after a long day. What has been done has been done. What has not been done has not been done. Let it be. The night is dark. Let our fears of the darkness of the world and of our own lives rest in you. The night is quiet. Let the quietness of your peace enfold us, all dear to us, and all who have no peace. The night heralds the dawn. Let us look expectantly to a new day, new joys, new possibilities. In your name we pray. Amen. Thanks for being here. It was wonderful to be with you.
Thank you, Lindsay, for leading.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Lindsay. This is always special.
Right.
Thank you.
That's how we get in the second session of prayer.
Century prayer.
It's a great motivator.
Or maybe a first.
Yeah.
No judgment. Everybody stay safe. Have a good week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.